It's Friday, June 22nd. Welcome to Pastor Bob Daily. This is the fifth and final installment of a 5-part series called The 5 Serious Flaws of the Modern Church. And this one today I'm calling Not Enough Local Outreach. And it really is the one that I'm probably the most passionate about of all 5 of these things. You know, folks, one of the biggest problems with the modern church today is that we don't have enough involvement in the community. I said yesterday, or the day before, I can't remember, that, we began 300 years after Christ left the earth to begin structuring buildings as the body of Christ. And we called the building a church. But for 300 years, it was understood that the church meant people. Well, there are some advantages of meeting in a building. But one of the biggest disadvantages is that we let those 4 walls absolutely confine us, and we let them separate us. So everything that's going on inside the church becomes important, and everything that happens outside of the church becomes less important or secular. And so we sit inside the church and we invite people to come in. We put cute little sayings on the marquee outside of the church. We advertise, please come to our church, please come. We invite our friends to come to church. But we don't really get involved in the community. We don't see outside of those walls. We don't see through the stained glass. And outside are people that really need our help. And instead of getting involved in helping them many times, we criticize them instead. We take pot shots. We tell each other how much all of these things that are going on outside of the walls offend us, instead of actually engaging. One of the things that I really enjoy having church under a bridge, what the homeless is that there aren't any walls, and I can see exactly the mission field. I love that part. I love not being confined by it and seeing exactly where I'm at. But the other thing that I love is that I feel like I'm really making a difference. Now, this is not a look at me thing. I have been in both sides of this debate, and I realize that I probably am not balanced still. But I just realize that it's so important, folks, that we do what Jesus asked us to do and really reach out. Most churches wait for the government to help. The United States, 1 out of 7 people are on food stamps, when it's really the church's job, not the government's job. We're supposed to be feeding those people that are less fortunate. It's what Jesus told us to do. Can't find people to do it. It's difficult. Some churches are involved, very few. In fact, of all the money that comes into a church, usually much less than 10% goes to outreach. The rest of it goes to pay salaries, to pay the building expenses, all of those. And I want to challenge pastors today, and I realize you're going to shake your head and say, Pastor Bob has gone way too far this time. I'm going to challenge you to spend 50% of your total money that comes in on outreach. I think that's fair. It ought to be more. Because you see, it's the very thing that God told us to do. He didn't tell you to pay the light bills. He didn't tell you to build a big building. He really didn't tell you any of those things. He did tell you to be involved. And he says, and when you do these things for the least of these, my brethren, you've done it for me. But you see, instead, we're afraid of this. We're afraid of even having non-Christian friends in our circle of friends. And we keep speaking Christianese, so they can't understand us anyway. And man, when I drive down the street and I look at some of the billboards outside of the churches, I think how ridiculous that must seem to people that aren't Christians. We use King James English. We speak in Christian terms that they don't have any idea about. We speak in Christianese. But the biggest problem is this, folks. When you're not involved outside of those walls, you miss the biggest blessing you could ever have. You see, your faith really becomes meaningful when you pass on your blessings. If you're blessed with something, it feels really good to share it. It feels great to share it. when you're helping somebody else with it. If you just hoard it, if you just keep it, you really become miserable with your stuff. And so this is number 5. And it's one that I feel very strongly about. And I hope you will too. Get involved in your community. It isn't that hard. I always tell people that I have a 3-step program for getting involved with the homeless. Can I share them with you? You don't have to write it down. I think you'll remember. Step number 1, find the homeless. Step number 2, find food. Step number 3, feed them. Well, I realize it's not all that simple, but it is doable, and you can do it as well. And homeless is only one of the things that we ought to be involved with. Yesterday we talked about your spiritual gifts. How does that fit in the community? What can you do to help? And when your church comes together and realize that outreach in the local community is really important, your church will begin to grow spiritually, emotionally. And folks, it's not enough just to, send money to a distant country and think, okay, we're doing evangelizing. You need to be involved with it personally, not just your money, your time, your effort, you. I hope you will. God bless you. Have a great day.